On today's Newsmakers, Dallas Jenkins has a warning about political rhetoric and so much more, specifically in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. With no further ado, here is Dallas Jenkins. Dallas Jenkins, a lot happening in your life, in the world as well. You obviously have wrapped up season 6 of The Chosen, and as you were wrapping this up, we had this horrific event happen, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You were on set when you found out about this. What was going through your mind, your heart, as you heard the details?
Well, thank you, Billy. First of all, I can't claim to have some sort of involvement in this, right? I mean, I've met Charlie a couple times. We have a lot of mutual friends. He's from where I grew up, the area, Arlington Heights, Illinois. A lot of mutual friends with his wife and his beautiful children. And many, I was actually scheduled. In fact, you and I had been talking about doing a panel discussion at one of his events here in the near future. So I can't claim like this was some sort of personal impact on me as a friend of Charlie's. I wasn't a good friend of Charlie's, but my immediate reaction was it did feel close to home in the sense of, we are now in a time where this kind of thing isn't shocking. Like when I heard the news, someone said Charlie Kirk's just been shot. I think it was my son. And the fact that I wasn't shocked was disturbing to me. Now, when I heard, I think it was like 30, 40 minutes later that we heard that he had passed, that was shocking and upsetting because, he's 31 years old. And he was killed for things that he said, not for anything that he's done. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that, felt close to home was immediately the elephant in the room is, this is a guy who, this wasn't a random act, right? This wasn't a drive-by shooting, an accident or anything like that. So it's obvious he was killed for his beliefs. And this is something that I think that we as believers, and for myself and yourself and others who are conservatives and who probably are on the same side as Charlie was on the majority of issues. I didn't agree with him on everything, but his understanding and knowledge of the Bible and his understanding and knowledge of conservative issues and morality and Judeo-Christian values was probably unparalleled. I mean, I don't know that I can think off the top of my head someone who had a greater and deeper understanding and knowledge and love for the Bible, for Christ, and for conservative values all at once.
And could convey it in a way that was fascinating.
Yeah. So I am someone who lives with, I'm on set surrounded by probably more than 50% of my cast and crew, people who disagree with me politically and even spiritually. I mean, that's the thing about The Chosen is most people know by now that a good chunk of our cast and crew are not traditional believers or evangelicals. Some have become so by doing the show, but others haven't. So I'm always in this world of discussion and debate and surrounded by people who certainly wouldn't be fans of Charlie Kirk's. And I do a show that is by its very nature divisive, right? It's a portrayal of the most divisive man in human history, and someone who actually said that, who said, I did not come here to like, I'm not unifying, but I came with a sword. And so the reason that it felt close to home was not because I can't compare myself to Charlie Kirk. Again, I'm not making this about me. I didn't immediately become fearful. I just thought, I do understand that right now we are in a time where people demonize the opposition, the political or spiritual opposition, so much that their death is a logical conclusion. It's if you tell enough people that someone or a group of people are Nazis, are a threat to your literal freedom and democracy, and in fact, to your very life, why wouldn't you think that they should die or at least be stopped in some dramatic way. I mean, if you or I had the chance, I mean, I'm sure you face this question. If you had the chance to go back in time and you had an opportunity to kill Hitler, it raises an ethical question, but I would probably say, yeah, I think I would. I think I would, if I had that opportunity to prevent the deaths of millions and millions of Jews, I probably would. Well, that's how some people literally think of Charlie Kirk or Donald Trump or conservative Christians as existential and literal threats to their lives, and they use terms like evil and Nazi and whatnot. So what I did think about last night was two key things. One is I do make a show about the man who came to Earth and who had every reason to kill his enemies. His people were being oppressed, often tortured. Things like this, assassinations, happened frequently. And his followers kept saying, when are you going to put a stop to it? When are you going to, as the Messiah, as the one who is here to help us defeat our enemies and our oppressors, when are you going to do that? And he said, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm not here to do that. I'm here for your hearts. I'm here for spiritual renewal, not physical or political renewal. So I do hope that we as Christians can see events like this and say, this is what God promised. This is not a surprise. On this side of eternity, Jesus promised that these kinds of things would in fact happen, and that we are not to respond in kind, at least on a personal level. So I hope that we remember that as well, in the midst of our anger and frustration and hurt. The other thing is, I do want to caution all of us, both sides, against the kind of rhetoric that does cause things like this. Now, again, I'm not going to make this about myself, but I personally have seen Christian conservatives exaggerate and demonize and inflame to the extent that others have done about Charlie Kirk, about Donald Trump, about conservatives. Again, I'm not making a political statement myself. I'm not defending Donald Trump. I'm not defending Charlie Kirk. I'm not defending anyone's comments. All I am saying, though, is that I have seen many times people on all sides on social media casually throw out terms like evil and destructive, destroying the world, a threat to your life, all that kind of thing.
And not just people, but politicians, leaders, people who actually have sway over people too, right? The people who you would look to trust when they're telling you, and I just want to underscore this, that person or that politician or that opponent is evil and will destroy your life and they're going to do all these horrible things to you. I used to say, well, you can't blame, and I still believe this, when you shoot a gun, it's on you, right? But what gets you to that point of believing those things, there's a real dynamic here. And I just want to underscore that. And it's politicians who often do it. And it can happen on both sides, but it does happen.
Oh, absolutely. And because you think, I said this yesterday on social media, I said, if you've ever referred to Charlie Kirk or someone like him as a Nazi or Hitler-esque or a threat to your freedom and democracy in your life, then you have no reason to be upset about his death. But the logical conclusion is, well, if someone's going to, because I believe in self-defense, if someone is a threat to my life and a threat to my freedom and a threat to my, then I would believe that person should not be able to do that. And if I'm confronted with it, then the ending of that life is a necessity, like it was for someone like Hitler. So I always want to bring it back to where is Jesus in this? Where our call as Christians is not to be like the world is, to not engage in the same way that the world does. And so I am upset, of course. I am angry, of course. This was I do place some of the blame on some of the rhetoric from the opposition, but I also look at some of the rhetoric I've seen from our side as well. And I've even seen some of it directed at me. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not putting myself in Charlie Kirk's category. I'm just saying I have seen things about myself online of people saying like, he is leading people to hell. He is, or saying things about me that are factually untrue and that are inflammatory. And I go, from Christians, right? And every time I see it, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't hurt me or offend me or anything like that. But every time I go, am I ever guilty of that? Do I ever to make myself feel better, to justify my hatred or dislike of or resistance to someone else on the other side. Do I ever do that? And so I think that we can say safely ourselves, well, we're not capable of firing a gun and killing somebody. But there are enough crazy people out there, enough damaged people out there who could take our words if we say them enough and say them publicly enough and casually throw them out on social media and stoke flames of hatred, of when we demonize and exaggerate. It can lead to things like this. And I just hope that we take a look at ourselves and say, look, the number one thing that we are called to is to love God and love others. And even in the midst of pain, even in the midst of hatred, even in the midst of violence, we are to love God and love others. And so Charlie, that's ironically enough what he was all about. As much as I even know people who think that he was, horrible and evil. He never, ever, ever, ever hurt anybody. He never absolutely ever advocated for the violence against anybody. He called certain ideas evil. He never personally insulted people, calling them themselves evil, at least that I know of.
No, he did the opposite. I mean, from everything I've ever, he did like there was a clip with him and these porn stars, talking about, and he's having this conversation with them, and it's completely loving about, hey, God has a better plan for you. I think what you're doing is wrong, but God has a better plan for you. Right. He showed up in venues from everything I've ever seen and known where it was uncomfortable. He showed up. The only weapon he ever used was his voice, right? And logic. And again, you don't have to agree with everything he said. Nobody agrees 100% with anybody, right? But this is a person who didn't use violence, who showed up to have a conversation. And it seems to me that we're at such a bizarre place in America that when you simply show up with a viewpoint and a perspective, because of that herd mentality and the media and Hollywood, whatever other forces are coming together, all of them to say something, when that narrative is created, there can be a real danger there. And I hadn't really thought of it until the past year with these assassination attempts, where I've really thought, wow, people really believe this. They really believe that their life will end if this person is allowed to live or is elected.
Right. So then the logical question is, then why would you be upset if that person was dead? Like when we're shocked by some of the comments we see where someone, is making excuses for Charlie Kirk's assassination. I go, why are we surprised? Why? I would be confused if you truly believed he was evil and an existential threat. Why would you be upset by his death? And it's because, we celebrated when Osama bin Laden was killed. And I believe that I'm sure, hopefully we were sad for his eternal soul. Hopefully we are sad for what he represents. But I had what I would believe would be a righteous satisfaction that he was no longer able to do the damage that he was doing. Yeah. And there is a measurable group of people and an influential group of people in this country and around the world who genuinely believe that there are certain people who are as bad and as dangerous and as much of a threat as an Osama bin Laden or a Hitler or any other terrorist. And so this is the logical conclusion. And so it shouldn't be shocking. It should just be devastating and upsetting. And I just hope and pray, again, for the purposes of this discussion, for you and me, Billy, as people who are talking in the evangelical sphere, there are plenty of others who are going to throw appropriate criticism towards those who are responsible for his death. But let's also do our part to look inward and go, are we ever capable? And have we ever done anything like this not like the shooting, but the exaggeration, the inflammatory rhetoric, the kind of exaggerated social media, especially speech that inflames others and can lead to someone who is damaged, someone who is unwell, doing what should be the logical conclusion of responding to evil. And I want to always look inward, and I want to always follow the teachings of Jesus and say, no matter what happens, even if something unjust happens, we must trust in the God of justice and not try to enact it ourselves. And then look inward and say, I want to make sure that I'm not doing what these people are doing. I want to make sure I don't become what I'm criticizing of, or what I'm so opposed to.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to create a deception. You know, as Christians, creating a deception, when you exaggerate something, it can create a deception that is not true, and you're perpetuating that. And there's a cost to that, right? And you know, we see this in different areas of life. Obviously, this is the most extreme example of what we see with what happened to Charlie. You know, what's just as we kind of come to a close here, and I always love getting to talk with you because you have great things to say, and you've always also been very vocal about what you believe about things well before The Chosen. Well, you know, just always thinking through what you really believe, you know, and expressing it in a way that was kind and, you know, strong but very kind, and I've always admired that about you. But as we close here, what's your prayer for America at this moment? Because we are in a very difficult, and we have been for a while, but I think this is a moment that could turn things in one direction or another. What's your prayer?
Yeah. Well, Billy, you and I have known each other for a while. And yes, before The Chosen, I would say I was probably more politically conversant and expressive than I am now. And the reason is because I am more spiritually conversant and expressive than I have ever been, because by doing The Chosen, I have been so enamored with and surrounded by the teachings of Jesus. I've realized politics is ultimately not the answer. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be passionate about it. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be involved, but it's not the ultimate capital A answer. And so my prayer for this country is that we would answer the question, the existential questions, in the same way Charlie did. When Charlie was asked, what do you want to be remembered for? Or whenever he was asked about, like, what's the ultimate? It wasn't, well, I want to win the debate over trans rights. I want to win the debate over abortion. I want to win, I want to make sure that Republicans get elected as president. That was never the number one thing. It was the number one thing for him, the umbrella, the macro level for him. And I hope it is for me, and I hope it is for you and for anyone who's watching right now, is the question of who are you? Whose are you? Who do you belong to? And I belong to and claim possession by the creator of the universe, by the God of the universe and his son, Jesus, who is also part of the Godhead, who came to earth as a human being and taught us, not only in his humanity, but in his divinity, what it means to be holy and what it means to pursue righteousness, even if we'll never get there on this side of eternity. And so my prayer for this country is that we will continually be steered towards and pushed towards a reliance on God and his word, and not on the affairs of men. And when we are concerned more about the affairs of men and women and about these debates, then we are in fact concerned about what God thinks about our hearts and our relationship with him. It leads to things like this, because we as human beings are incapable of righteous living. We are incapable of being selfless to the extent that Christ was. And so that's who we are supposed to be pursuing. And so my prayer for this country is that slowly but surely, one at a time, people would turn towards their creator. And that things like this wouldn't result in either of two things. One, trying for revenge, trying to fight harder, and two, an increased resistance to God. I'm hoping that this draws us closer to God, and that we think that, yes, God is here in the midst of suffering. So that's my prayer for our country.
Dallas Jenkins, thank you so much for breaking it down, talking with us today. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me on. And this is a painful time. I hope we all turn to our creator in times like this.
That's all for today's Newsmakers. Make sure you head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel and cbnnews.com for more of the news you need to read. We'll see you again tomorrow.